didn't even ask my question yet, but I'm put a nickel in. I'm the Dream Exchange. Let me just give my bully pulpit to the world because I've been studying this for more 20 years, 15 years of creating the Dream Exchange, and through that research, it's easy to see that public investment, the general American public, will support investment in these companies. The same way they support buying records and they support, professional sports. There aren't different ideas. It's not, oh, those are the only two areas where we're going to see, flourishing in a particular community, because business owners and businesses have talent and abilities and great ideas that we need. We need them to survive as a society. So when you look at the two statistics that really were compelling to the United States Congress, were that in the last 20 years, we have basically annihilated small public capital. So anything that was $50 million and under, that used to be the go to the public markets and get that money and expand your company, and now you're a public company. Those transactions have all been but eliminated. And that's the first. It was like, oh, where did they go? They used to be 70 to 90% of all the public offerings were under $50 million, very small companies. And now it's probably fewer than 10%, maybe. So 20 if it's a real high year, 10 out of hundreds. So we have to reverse that trend. But when you marry that statistic with the fact that 92% of all jobs are created after a company has publicly available shares. So they have an initial public offering. So if your job growth goes from 100 people to 1,000 people because you can go to the American capital markets and get money, well, that's a very telling statistic as well. But the one that captures everybody's attention, I've been saying this for a long time, this New York Stock Exchange has been around for 220 years. There's been one Black-owned company ever listed on the New York Stock Exchange. So if you want to look at communities that have companies in the community that grow jobs, well, it's not hard to extrapolate that, well, there are no public companies. So the job growth isn't there. The employment isn't there. And career jobs. And, I don't want to weigh in on, there's now a big debate on a minimum wage. Okay, but why are we discussing minimums?
But even so, if we had the opportunity to invest in some of these smaller companies that are owned by Black and other indigenous groups, they would create jobs within those same communities, helping to, develop the economy into those communities, because they would have their offices there. They would hire people in the community there. And then you're, generating revenue within the locality.
Yes, the potential is tens of thousands of jobs. And this is what's really interesting about the difference between what I was just saying. If you have a company, it has a human resources department, it has a marketing department, it has treasury, it has production, it has quality control, it has promotional activities, all of which have career path, living wage job opportunities. So there's a career path, there's a promotion path, there's the ability to share in the prosperity of the company and its wealth. And if you build those opportunities, I said this, and like I said, I'm not weighing in on a political debate, because it is clear that there are people who are underpaid because there's a minimum wage that might be too low for the work, right? So I'm not against an increase in minimum wage. It's not really my expertise. I'm asking a question before that, which is, why are we only looking at the opportunity for a minimum wage job? Why are there college educated, talented people who don't have the same opportunity where they live to go to work and have a corporate, large corporation with public monies career path so that they can, expand and have a family and have a home and have a community so that we're not debating minimum wage anymore. We're debating thriving as opposed to basic survival. So
Right.
what we're talking about is making the community thrive, expanding it, making it bigger and better, and having prosperity. There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, how did now? So when you're talking about prosperity and thriving and everything like that, and it kind of made me think about this whole idea of the financial transactions tax that they're proposing in New York.
Mhm.
So, companies, some of these companies are talking about relocating to Texas or Florida or elsewhere. How could that impact the overall markets?
I mean that is so. There's a danger, okay, and the danger comes in. Um, it's a philosophical danger on taxation, okay, and I don't know that we necessarily have a real solution to transaction-based taxes, okay, because there's a lot of buying and selling a home. If you sell your home and you don't buy another home, eventually you'll be taxed on the money you received for the gain on your home. Same thing with stocks, and the same thing that you're implying, where the government wants to philosophically help people. I don't think that anyone starts out with some kind of evil scheme to hurt people. It's just that government's got to pay the bills, right? So they're looking for different ways to generate income and revenue. Well, one of the best ways that we have to generate income and revenue is if people are gainfully employed and they have money to spend. Well, if you have a sales tax, the more they spend, the more sales tax that's collected. If they have a job and we still have an income tax, they pay more income tax in their state and local areas. And more people are thriving, so more people absorb. The Chinese have an expression, many hands make light work. So the more people that are paying the tax, the potential for the reduction of the burdens is spread amongst everyone in the community. So that is, it's very nice theoretical. I'm not a tax expert, but I do know this. I know that the wealthiest people, and I don't necessarily mean Warren Buffett and Bill Gates, who are the wealthiest people in the country. I'm talking about what is ostensibly the middle class wealth. It comes from being able to have a sufficient savings to invest and investing it, like that word investing. Of the million people that have been coming to us, many young Black professional people want the opportunity to get into this marketplace and support what we're doing because they understand, oh, I can build my wealth. There's a lot of financial technology where people are doing, trading Bitcoin and making investments in new IPOs like, Uber and Lyft and Facebook from years ago. And that wealth creation that comes from owning something in the large sense, okay, in the biggest sense, is not lost on anyone. However, if you're in a smaller company and it appreciates, doubles or triples, or it goes 10 times its value, and you're one of the people helping create it, well, that's an enormous amount of wealth because you're putting your ideas and your work efforts into something that tends to expand, and that private wealth. And right now it's a private wealth based environment. In fact, we just did a webinar, and I recently discussed all what's happening with GameStop and Reddit and the short selling. And I go through in great detail the mechanics of what just transpired. And what we're seeing is that the general American investing public is beginning the process of democratizing finance. We're voting with our investment pocketbooks. And that's the most free market system in the world. But if you're a small company, the only way you can participate is in a relationship driven environment. So if you don't have the relationships to vastly wealthy people, it's very difficult to get a sufficient amount of money to put your company on the map. And, for example, I was saying my firm worked with the Chicago Urban League more than 10 years ago, and there were some successes. There were great entrepreneurs, and these are when I say entrepreneurs, they were Black-owned companies, and the leaders of those companies, some of them were Ivy League pedigreed leadership. These are people who are not just someone with a hoodie and flip flops in their garage like Steve Jobs. These are people who really had MBAs from Harvard, okay, trying to put their company on the map. And even their relationships were insufficient because they weren't knocking on the door of Goldman Sachs. And I don't want to demonize Goldman Sachs. Someone said, you got to be careful. You're always pointing at them as the bad guy. They're actually not bad. They just don't have what we have. They don't have the capacity in their organization with the large amounts of money they're dealing with to actually carefully examine how to get into that community and how to help. This is the key word about the Dream Exchange. I think the word is help. How to help establish enough relationships in the beginning as well as a public market then. Because once that private market is there, let's say you own a vastly successful company. Well, you can't sell your shares of stock. You own the company, and there's no what they call liquidity. There's no way to cash in. So our marketplace allows for the opportunity to say, well, I own a company. It's worth 10 or 20 or $50 million. I'd like to sell some of it. I don't want to have to sell the entire company. I want to keep working. I want to raise some money. Some of it will come to me because I'm successful. And the rest of it will go into expanding the company. That's what a public offering does. It makes the wealth of the entrepreneur become materialized in a marketplace where other people can bid on their shares of stock and they can sell them. And if you want to buy a car, you don't have to call a bunch of stockbrokers. No offense to stockbrokers either, or you don't have to try to then go about this private capital raising mechanism, which is very hard to do. And this is the attention I'm saying. Last year, maybe it was a little longer than last year, we were working with the House Financial Services Committee. Chairman Waters' staff did an outstanding job. They conducted a hearing. The Main Street Growth Act was kind of one of the main bills. There were probably 10 other laws discussed at this hearing. And in our webinars, I have a slide that shows the priorities of the current Congress. And in the top 3 priorities, creating new exchanges to enable the freedom of the public capital markets to invest in these companies is right at the very top of the committee. And that is a nonpartisan issue. That is, everybody's behind that. And I'll tell you what's interesting about it is it's tax-free. If we raise private capital or public capital and we invest in these companies and the companies expand, there actually isn't a burden on the taxpayer. The taxpayer, we don't have to create a taxpayer program that says, oh, let's drive tax dollars into the community. We're doing it ourselves. We're taking full responsibility. And then we're not beholden to, well, are they going to renew that program? Or is the program going to expand? Or how many billions of, that's a debate that goes on, and it's haphazard. We can't guarantee the Congress is going to vote for that prosperity all the time either. But we can I have beautiful companies and people. We can't take those companies and expand them. One of the examples I have, and this is a fellow who's been a friend of mine for maybe 15 years. He is a Black disabled veteran who is just, I love him. Okay. He's going to be one of our first companies. We're working with him to prepare him we'll probably open in about a year, but he's going to be one of the first. And what his company does is they take electronic waste, so computers and phones and monitors for computers. Well, they have glass and they have precious metals and they have toxic materials, so they can't be dumped in a landfill. So all of those materials have to be separated. So he has a company that separates the precious metals from the waste, from the plastics, copper and gold and all of that, and he recycles it profitably. And he has a design of the organization. Now, this is also fascinating to me. He's an Army Ranger. This is a guy who he jumped out of airplanes for a living. So he's a very brave fellow. Okay. And his idea was, look, I trained young soldiers. I can train people to have a career path in this company. So he designed a program that has now been accepted at these junior colleges. And there's actually people who are coming off of work release, where they can actually do the junior college program even before they're out of the correctional system, and immediately go and have a career path job working in this company. Now, if you think about all the boxes that we talk about in our society, everyone likes to say environmental, sustainable, green, environmental, ESG, ESG, ESG. Well, we at the Dream Exchange, we're adding D to that, diversity. So his idea, and he didn't have to do this, okay, but that's where his attention is, okay, and that he needs maybe $12 million, and Chase Bank has $1 trillion balance sheet. Apple Computer has $1 trillion value. They don't have the mechanics within those organizations to look at something for $12 million. Okay, we do. And when we put our machinery in place, I'm giving you one example. We already have hundreds of examples like that we intend to see become thousands, where now we have a company. And remember what I said? If he has 50 employees, if he gets into the public capital markets, he'll have 500 employees. And there'll be human resource jobs. There'll be marketing and sales and accounting and jobs that are meaningful contributions to a company. And guess what? They'll be able to own some of that company. And as they work and as they are thriving in their living wage, they'll also be building their wealth. So this is how the country has been built this way.
Right. It reminds me of Procter and Gamble. Back in the day, they allowed their employees to own some of the shares of the company.
Yeah, I mean, the employee stock ownership plans at very large companies have been very successful, very, very successful. I worked at a company, and one of the people who was a peer of mine, she was much older than I was, but she took advantage of the employee stock ownership at the company to such an extent that she and her husband were able to retire in her mid-50s, and no one knew that she was doing this because she always did the maximum amount of investing in the company from her paycheck. And when she retired, we were all kind of like, wow, she's retiring. And when she was telling us, well, here's the millions of dollars of stock that I own. That's why I can retire now. And she actually she worked in her church. Okay, so she worked full time for the company. She was not some top executive. Okay, she worked in the accounting department. Okay, but she built wealth, and then she transitioned from her job to being full time at her church, which is what she wanted to do. Okay, but she then had the wealth to be in her community, doing the things that gave her the spiritual joy she was looking for. So there's so many positive things about life and how we survive together in our country and in our world that come from trusting each other to invest in each other. And that's really what this boils down to, is we're creating an environment where the investors will be able to trust the investments they make. So it's not for everybody, it's not like just some corporation that exists in somebody's desk drawer and doesn't have, we're going to vet all that. But in the meantime, where there are problems, we're here to help. We want solutions to the company's early stage problems so they can succeed and they can flourish and prosper. So, sorry, like I said, you put a nickel in. This is my life. I dream about the Dream Exchange. So,
Joe, I want to thank you for joining us again on TCP in the Morning.
Being acknowledged for doing the right thing. So I'm grateful that you have me. Thank you so much for giving me the time on your show.
Oh, no problem. It is always a pleasure for you to join us. And you know what? Our audience loves when you come as well. We got great feedback. People loved it. Our audience was tuned in nonstop. So thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and we'll come back as we make more milestones. We have actually in the next couple of months, we have some kind of bigger announcements. And I would love to come back and give you some more updates and share with you. We have some really, I think, household names that we're going to be able to reveal soon that are really supporting us. And I'm going to be very happy. Maybe I can even get some of those people to come on with me, which will help the shows because a lot of.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, everyone, that was Jill Cecela, founder and CEO of the Dream Exchange. Coming on, and guys, stay tuned for more TCP in the Morning, brought to you by Penny.com.